Hey everybody, this is part of our full-length primetime podcast. You can check it out on BlogTalkRadio, iTunes, YouTube, plenty more. I hope you enjoy.
We're going to move on, though, into our football semifinals, and we're going to start with, to some might be the biggest blowout of the college football playoff. For others, it might be the biggest upset in college football history, is how Sean Anderson put it yesterday, which I immediately kind of quashed that because I know he meant college football playoff, not college football, because really we've had D2 teams that have beaten D1 teams that have been bigger upsets. But Brandon, coming into this semifinal matchup, the number 4 Washington Huskies, number 1 Alabama Crimson Tide, I'll be frank. Is there any way the Huskies can win this game and complete an upset over Alabama?
Yes, of course there's a way, Ricky. There's a will by the Huskies. So where there's a will, there's a way, right? And that was extremely corny, but yes, there's an opportunity for them to be able to do it. So you have to remember that the Huskies had what I would say pretty simple Pac-12 schedule this season. The loss that they had came to, of course, USC, who was number 9 at the time. They ended up being very good, USC. When they played Alabama in their first 3 weeks, they were not good at all. But Washington played only 2 close games all year. 7-point wins in both. They were on the road. They blew out 10 opponents. And they have held their teams that they've played to under 20 points in 8 different games this season. Now, Alabama puts up way more than 20 points. And this defense for the Huskies, it's going to have to be very good. And they're going to have a lot to handle because we're talking good wide receivers from Alabama. We're talking a slew of running backs, with the number 1 running back being Jalen Hurts, who also acts as the quarterback. So Jalen Hurts, if they cannot stop him in the run, they're going to have a real long day. And they're going to have a lot of points put up against them. But if they can stop him in the run and limit him in the pass, the Huskies do have an opportunity. I will give that to them. They have a good defense. They have a very good offense. But that very good offense in Jake Browning has not gone up against the Alabama defense. The Alabama defense, and I think I've said this before, is going to be the best defense that this Husky team has seen all season long, and it may be the best team that this Husky team ever sees, period.
Well, and to me, the one thing that I'm thinking about coming into this game is, of course, you looked at it for Washington's defense, like with them against Jalen Hurts. And Jalen Hurts is the X factor for this Alabama offense because he's a guy coming in. He wasn't even the starter. He can hurt you with his arm or his legs. To me, I'm looking at that Washington offense, and I'm thinking the thing that has to happen for them to possibly be in, I'm just going to say be in the game, because you got to be in the game before you can beat the Alabama Crimson Tide. That's where my mindset is going. If we look at Alabama's defense this year, which has possibly been the best defensive front that we have seen at Alabama. Like last year it was, Derrick Henry. He's running so great because he's got a great offensive line. This year it's, wow, this is the best defensive unit, best defensive front seven that Nick Saban's probably ever had at Alabama. And when I look at their rushing yards given up per game, 63.4 yards per game by this Alabama Crimson Tide defense. And to me, that is astounding. And when I look at a guy like Myles Gaskin, who has over 1,000 yards this season, I'm looking at that sophomore running back and I'm saying, buddy, you better be on your A game, because if he is not on his A game and Gaskin can't get going against this Alabama front seven, Washington's just going to force to become one-dimensional through Jake Browning, and that's exactly where Alabama wants you. They want to force you to become one-dimensional so that they can just sit back on the pass and eat you alive all day on offense.
Absolutely, and I think that Alabama, they have proven to do that, though, this season. I mean, when you take a look at a lot of the games that they've played in, with probably the closest game, points-wise, being the game that they played against Ole Miss. Ole Miss was able to drive on that Alabama defense, but that's because they had an excellent quarterback. Also, in this situation, Washington has an excellent quarterback. I think that Alabama, though, that game against Ole Miss much earlier in the season for Alabama in the fall, at the beginning of the fall, I believe, this is a game where Alabama's defense, I think, each week got better and better and stronger and stronger. And then, of course, that LSU game where they gave up 0 points and won in a 10-0 game. I don't think that that's going to happen in this game. I think we're going to see some points put up on the board, especially by Alabama. But I think that Washington has an opportunity if Jake Browning can come and play how Jake Browning has played this season. I mean, 40 touchdowns. The guy has been incredible. He's been really good. And let's not take anything away from him at all because he has gotten the job done. And in Washington, a team that, Ricky, I think we're on the same page. This was not a team that we were looking at early in the season or even in the preseason where we thought Washington would make a run or even be near this point. And Washington wasn't on my radar. I don't think it was on yours either.
Oh, no, the Pac-12 to me was nowhere near the college football playoff.
In the Pac-12, in all honesty, I don't think really got near the college football playoff until the end of the season.
Mm-hmm.
When Washington continued to go on their run, they showed that they didn't want to lose. They ended up losing that game to USC, but then USC started to get good and turn into what they really were for the season, which was a pretty good top team. But what Washington did is they took care of business, and that's what they were able to prove, that they could take care of business when they needed to. And they beat Utah. They beat Washington State. They beat Colorado. The closest game being the game against Utah. I think that Washington here knows that they're a huge, huge underdog. No one expects them to win, except maybe Sean Anderson, I think, has some 0.1% he believes that they might win. But everyone else, they do not expect anything from Washington. And that's, I think, when the team is scariest. And I think that that's why Washington could pose that threat. But on the other side, I've tried, since I'm the Alabama fan, I've tried to do everything I could to be fair to Washington, and I think that I was. But now let's be realistic. Alabama is going to crush them, and Alabama is going to get turnovers. They're going to do what they've done all season long. Jalen Hurts, when he has turned the football over, and he's done it a couple of times this season, Alabama's defense has always been able to hold their ground on the other side. That's why those turnovers don't turn to points for the other team. Alabama's offense has been outstanding. Jalen Hurts has been outstanding. It has been a good season for Alabama, but when you look at them, you also look at their defense. How can you not? Especially that defensive front for the Crimson Tide. I don't think Washington has the talent that Alabama does on the offensive line. It's going to be a struggle, I think, protecting Jake Browning. I don't think he's going to be able to have the success that he's had throughout the season. But that's why they play the game. And it's going to be a good one come Saturday night.
Well, and the one thing I want to look at is the big thing for me in this game. And by the way, I love when you do that. I love when Brandon goes, now you know what? I looked at the other side. I gave you guys props. But here's really what's going to happen. And he really lets out what Brandon Swanson is thinking deep down in. I love when you do that, Swanee. But to me, the other thing I'm looking at, and of course, these were different Alabama teams, but I look back to this is the third year that Alabama has been in a playoff game, in a semifinal game. And they are overall in playoff games / championships. They are 2-1. Their only loss coming to Ohio State back in 2014 when we first had the college football playoff. And to me, you look at each game and what was the other team able to do that won? They were able to run the ball. And I know what you're saying, but Ricky, those were different Alabama teams. This Alabama team has the best defensive front seven. You said it just moments ago. But really, teams that are able to run the ball against Alabama find a way to win. How do they do this? They do it easily. When you run the ball, you're taking time off that clock. You're using more of the play clock. Time of possession is in your favor. What are you doing by doing all of this? A, you're tiring out that defense, and B, you're keeping that Lane Kiffin offense on the sideline. And that's what Washington needs to do. They need to have long, methodical drives with some explosive plays. They have Myles Gaskin. He's going to be, to me, the key player in this game because I look back at their 3 college football playoff games, one being the national championship last year. You look at Ohio State, the only team to beat them. They ran for a total of 281 yards and 2 tutties, an average of 6.7 yards per carry, with Zeke leading the way with 11.5 yards per carry and 230 yards. But then you look at the other two, Michigan State, they only had 29 yards rushing against this team. And then Clemson, they almost beat them last year, and that's because they had 145, most of which coming from Deshaun Watson. So if you want to beat this team, you have to have a strong run game. Look why LSU was never able to beat Alabama with Leonard Fournette, because he never got going against the Alabama Crimson Tide. That's how you beat this Crimson Tide team. You run the ball, keep the offense on the sideline, and then you got to put up points at the end of your drives. You can't just have these long drives go for naught.
Absolutely, I agree. And I think that another thing at the end that I want to bring up is Nick Saban. Nick Saban is one of the best college football minds.
Mm-hmm.
And he does not let people outsmart him. Just take a look at all the people who have come and tried to beat him, former assistants.
Mm-hmm.
Former assistants are 0-10 against Nick Saban. Even the people that coached with him can't beat him. Nick Saban does not let people outsmart him. They will not outsmart him in this game. And I think that that's one of the biggest reasons why they're so dangerous.
Well, and before we move on, we are going to, of course, this is a discussion for you guys. Let us know down below what you guys think of this game. If you download the podcast from Blog Talk Radio or listening through that route, let us know on Twitter what you are thinking about this semifinal game. Let us know either on Twitter or the comment section on YouTube.
Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed a lot of emotion. If you want more, click this video right over my left shoulder. You will certainly not regret it.